Interesting to note that Frank Sinatra turned down a song from Paul McCartney. You know, sometimes when you hear about artists that were offered a chance to work with someone, the song was called Suicide, and Frank Sinatra turned it down. It was like an earlier song that McCartney had wrote. He had Sinatra in mind. He was a huge fan of Sinatra. You know, if you were a songwriter growing up at that back particular time, Sinatra was one of those artists that you wanted to do cover your songs because his voice was legendary and he was one of the most important artists of his day and his time. But he turned it down. He did cover the Beatles something. He had a mixed reaction with the Beatles because I think he said he liked them, but he didn't think they were gonna make it in New York. And when they did, he gave them the stamp of approval. Um, because they could write melodically. They could write. And that's the thing about them. Now, everything else about them you can debate. They weren't hardly the greatest band ever. George Martin was a great producer who combined their skill sets, and then it flourished with all that. But if we're going by them musicianship or arrangements of some of the stuff, they were pretty run of the mill. They're pretty average. But when you get to the songwriting, the compositional standpoint, they can hang with just about anybody you want to mention. Because to me, it was always about songwriting where the Beatles were concerned. Even though I do respect McCarthy as a bass player, and I think he does have harmony in his voice, and he has written some songs I like, but he's pretty been middle of the road most of the time with his, post Beatles. I like some of the whimsical things he did, but him and John Lennon were like, they were those guys together. But, um, you know, the question is like, and do you think it was a big loss that Sinatra never covered any of his songs? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think Frank Sinatra was gonna lose sleep by not covering Paul McCartney. You know, he had a lot of proliferate offers and a lot of material, and he had a big time hit making career. So I don't think I did get a chance to hear the outtake of that song, and then it was written. Would have been in the styling of him, but maybe it just didn't really go anywhere. Because you have to have a something to make it connect, and to connect Sinatra, you got to make a hook, line, and sinker. So, but it's interesting. When you hear these stories about big name artists and people who turn down working with other artists, and you're like, wow, it's kind of like, wow, that's an interesting story. Because if they had to cover that particular song, how might that have, uh, you know, worked, or would it have worked? It's an interesting story when you hear about it. So, I heard McCartney do ad libs and vocal runs with the song, but I can't say that it necessarily fit where Sinatra was. And then again, you got to understand the time frame, the musicality, the type of stuff. Sinatra got to a point where he's doing this over the top, lush, heavy based orchestration songs with punchlines and so on and so forth in them. And that might not necessarily been where he was at, as an artist. So, but it's interesting though um, when you hear it, it's kind of like, okay. So he turned that down. So yeah. Um, I had to do some research on that one. I said, okay, Sinatra turned down working with Paul McCartney. Very interesting. Very interesting. And the piece, yeah, the parts of it kind of flow with him, but it may not have been a Sinatra type of song. But anyway, tell me what you think though. Please hit like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands, keep your mind clear, watch out for another, and share the video if you like, and hit that membership because when you do, requests like this come true. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out. Peace.